In the high-stakes, world-ending poker game of the Cold War, there was only one hand that truly mattered: the survivable nuclear second strike. By the 1960s and 70s, the United States and the Soviet Union, the two great titans of the age, had placed their ultimate bet on the silent darkness of the deep ocean. Their fleets of nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines, or SSBNs, were the ultimate insurance policy. Doomsday weapons hidden beneath the waves, guaranteeing that any first strike would be answered with an apocalyptic retaliation. In this exclusive club of undersea superpowers, one nation was conspicuously absent. This was the profound strategic crisis facing the People's Republic of China. Under Chairman Mao, China had shocked the world by developing its own nuclear bomb and the land-based missiles to carry it. It was a nuclear power, but it was a nuclear power with a fatal, glaring flaw. Its entire arsenal was based on land, in fixed silos and on mobile launchers that were vulnerable, detectable, and, in the terrifying calculus of a first strike, targetable. China's nuclear deterrent was a sword, but it was a sword with no shield. This was not a theoretical weakness. It was a profound and deeply humiliating strategic vulnerability that left the nation's very survival in question. A nuclear deterrent that cannot survive a first strike is not a deterrent at all. It is a bluff. The United States and the Soviet Union could, in theory, decapitate China's entire nuclear capability in the opening minutes of a conflict, leaving the world's most populous nation with no ability to strike back. This rendered China's voice on the world stage a whisper. It was a nuclear power that could be blackmailed, coerced, and, in the ultimate nightmare scenario, destroyed. This was an intolerable position for a nation with aspirations of greatness. To be a true, respected, and survivable nuclear power, to have a seat at the top table, China had to join the undersea race. It had to build its own SSBN. But this was a challenge of almost unimaginable difficulty. Building a nuclear submarine is one of the most complex engineering feats in human history. It requires a level of industrial and technological mastery that, at the time, China simply did not possess. They were a decade, perhaps two, behind their rivals. They would have to build their silent fortress from scratch, alone. The solution was one of the most ambitious, difficult, and ultimately troubled military projects in the history of the People's Republic. It was a national crusade to forge a second strike capability. It was Project 092. The single submarine that would be born from this immense effort would be known to the West as the Xia-class. The Xia was a testament to sheer brute force will.
In an ocean that demanded
the designers took the hull of their first-generation nuclear-powered attack submarine, the Type 091 hand class, and performed a radical and complex surgery. They stretched it and inserted a massive, raised hump section to house the ship's entire reason for being. 12 launch tubes for a brand new submarine-launched ballistic missile, the JL-1, or Giant Wave 1. This was a project pushing the absolute limits of China's 1970s-era industrial base. Every single component, from the nuclear reactor to the complex fire control systems, was a new and immense challenge. The submarine itself, hull number 406, was to be the fortress. The JL-1 missile, a solid-fueled weapon with a range of over 700 kilometers, was to be the sword. The Xia-class was the solution, China's first desperate and defiant attempt to build its own silent fortress and take its place as a true undersea nuclear power. But the story of the Xia-class is not one of glorious success. It is a story of profound, painful, and ultimately vital failure. The proof of its story is written in its deeply troubled operational history. The submarine itself, launched in 1981, was a disaster. It was plagued by technical problems. Its nuclear reactor was unreliable. And most critically, it was catastrophically loud. Western naval intelligence estimated it to be one of the noisiest nuclear submarines ever put to sea. A deafening roar in an ocean that demanded a whisper. The sword was just as troubled. The development of the JL-1 missile was a long and difficult saga, marked by repeated test failures. It wasn't until 1988, years after the submarine was launched, that a successful, submerged test firing was finally achieved. But by then, the world had moved on. The JL-1's short range meant the Xia would have to patrol relatively close to enemy shores to be a threat. A suicidal mission for a submarine that was as loud as a freight train. This is the ultimate, sobering proof of the Xia's story. In its more than 2 decades of service, the Type 092 Xia-class never sailed a single operational nuclear deterrent patrol. It was a fortress with paper-thin walls and a sword that couldn't reach. It was, in almost every measurable way, a strategic failure. But the legacy of the Xia-class is not one of failure. It is the legacy of the indispensable, if painful, teacher. It was not the answer, but it was the ship that taught China all the right questions. The catastrophic problems with its noisy reactor and machinery were the brutal, real-world lessons that directly led to the mastery of modern acoustic quieting technologies in its successors. The struggles with the solid-fueled JL-1 missile were the essential foundation upon which the modern, long-range JL-2 was built. The Type 092 was a billion-dollar, decade-long, and deeply frustrating lesson in how not to build a ballistic missile submarine. And it was a lesson that the Chinese Navy learned well. The modern, credible, and truly silent undersea deterrent that China possesses today, the fleet of Type 094 Xia-class submarines, was built directly on the technological and doctrinal ruins of the failed Xia. Without the painful first step of the Xia, the confident leap of the Jin would have been impossible. The Type 092 Xia-class is more than a failed submarine. It is a symbol of a nation's unwavering determination to achieve a goal, no matter the cost, no matter the setbacks. It is a testament to the idea that sometimes the most important lessons are learned not from our successes, but from our most profound failures. In the long, secret history of the undersea arms race, this noisy, troubled vessel was the Dragon's first flawed, but absolutely essential shadow. Share this video to explore the fascinating and strategically vital